Hey YouTube, Alan back with another video, and this is going to be part 4 of the My Life in Gaming series. So for those that haven't seen, part 1 and 2 dealt with my Sega years, part 3 dealt with the kind of transition to Nintendo, the N64, and we left off in 2001, end of that kind of N64 era going into the Gamecube era, and naturally now I was a Nintendo kind of guy, so I was looking for Nintendo's next system, which would be the Gamecube. But for whatever reason, I wasn't madly kind of, I gotta get it straight away, and I didn't. Whereas when I played the N64, it was like, yes, I gotta have that. I played the GameCube and it was like, okay, this is nice, but I wasn't like, I gotta get it straight away. Now I did in 2002. I did pick up the GameCube. Here's my 2002 GameCube. I actually picked it up pre-owned, because the thing about the GameCube back then compared to its competitors was it was relatively cheap. Like, system was 120 euros, and it came with like 2 controllers and a memory card and whatnot, and a game which I'll get to in a bit. So like it was a good deal. It was a good price. But I think part of the reason, I mean, you look at the back of this one. I mean, some nice looking games. Luigi's Mansion, Wave Race, Smash Brothers, Star Fox, and what, like, some good looking games. The graphics are a huge step up. But I think for me, I wasn't really ready to kind of end the N64 era. I had loved that system so much, and it wasn't done. I still wanted more. And the first games that I played, Luigi's Mansion, Super Monkey Ball, at just a friend's house, like, they were good games, they were enjoyable, but they didn't kind of wow me in the way that Mario 64 had. It didn't really feel like they were next gen graphics wise, but they didn't feel like they were this big new leap in gaming that I wanted to just jump into. But anyway, I obviously did. I picked up the system, and I like the system. I've always liked it. It's a lot smaller than I remember when I picked it out again. So compact. Mine is actually missing the bottom cover. I don't know where that went, because I had it plugged into a Game Boy player for so long. This has gone bye-byes, I'd imagine. I must look to replace it at some point, or get another Game Boy player, because they're so handy. The handle is a bit weird, but like, was it meant to be portable? Were you meant to carry it? Like, what was this all about? I don't get it. Created a lot of that whole kids lunchbox thing. This is the model that has both AV out options, which is nice. And it was just so sturdy and robust. Also, it had that cool little feature where you could eject by pressing the little center spindle thing, which was nice. After all, this was Nintendo's first disc-based system, so they were kind of probably thinking about, how do we do that? And of course, disc-based system, they couldn't use standard DVDs. The GameCube wasn't a DVD player, which I think hurted compared to the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox, because this is a more powerful system, I think, than the PlayStation 2. I think the games hold up graphically better. It was kind of somewhere in between, I would say. So it was a robust system, but Nintendo had to go to different optical media. They had to do things differently. Kept the price down, so it was comparatively cheap. Like in 2002, picking up the next gen system for 120 quid. I know it was second hand, but still, even brand new, they weren't that much more. So that's the system. The other big change, of course, and this was Nintendo's trademark at the time practically, was controller change. This is a good controller, but I always felt it was, or maybe I would say it's overrated as a controller, in my opinion. Like, yes, it's very comfortable. I do think that the way it's curved is just, it kind of really addressed that concern for the N64, which can get a little slow over time. But some of the buttons, the D-pad is too small. It's very hard to use. This is not a true 3D stick. It is a 3D stick, but it doesn't act in the same dual sense way when you want to have those control options. The shoulder buttons, the initial analog triggers are great, nice and kind of, they really are analog, and they're great for kind of like acceleration or stuff like that. And some games land into it well. But the little Z button, this was just always like a throwaway button. It felt like they just had to tack that on because we needed another button. If they were going to do it, they should have at least done one over here too to match them. And this new kind of non-diamond configuration, this is both genius and flawed. Like, it does feel like, for feel, you can kind of, oh, that's the central A button, it's big. You got the smaller B button, and you got the kidney button. So you can kind of, straight away, without thinking on it, through the feel of the button which one you're at. But the kidney ones are off. They don't have a distinction, and it doesn't have the same layout. Like when you play Mario or you play Donkey Kong Country, something like that, you kind of lay one thumb over another and kind of, you just press, so you hold the run button and run. But for a lot of games, that meant you'd be holding B and going like that, and it didn't feel as intuitive. Still a good controller, but I think Smash Brothers fans have kind of elevated it to heights that I would not. Anyway, that was the system. As I said, I was slow to get into it, but when I got into it with, I think, a game that really felt next gen to me, and that was Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2. I had not played the N64 iteration at the time. I'd seen pictures, I thought it looked good, but hadn't played it. I wasn't into Star Wars all that much. I had seen episode 1, maybe episode 2, and it was okay. It wasn't until I seen the original trilogy, I was like, whoa, actually I see what people are on about. I wanted to play this. I played it, loved it, and I was like, now I want a GameCube. This has got something that really kind of says the graphics, the sounds, everything are just amazing, and I just kept playing it. It's a tough game at times. Visually, this still holds up, because I went back to it and it is still a good looking game for a game that's like 20 years old. I mean, I would love to see like a remaster of this, and it's, you know, the entire trilogy, but yeah, this was a true next-gen experience, and also it features the voice of Dennis Lawson, the original Wedge Antilles. And I actually had a little video clips. This one actually, even, it was pre-owned, it was $29.99, so I got it with the system, so I got the system, the game, the controllers and the memory stick for $150, which I thought was a really good deal. I actually left the original stickers on for whatever reason. But yeah, this kind of knocked it out of the park when I got it, and I probably got it, I don't know, October 2002 or something like that. I don't know. It was getting near towards the end of the year anyway. Put that there. So I do not recall if I got a game for Christmas. Here's the thing about the GameCube era, and actually this decade. So for the 90s, I have a pretty strong recollection of when I got all the games, the order, how I transitioned from console, all that sort of stuff. For the 2000s, no, I do not. Like, I have some idea, and I'm trying to put them together as part of this video series, but I do not have that same instant recollection like I have for the earlier stuff. I guess I was in a different place in life, but it's kind of odd that the older stuff back, I remember that, but this stuff, it's a lot more fuzzy. So I did get this though at Christmas. This was a present, a great game. I had really kind of wanted to bulk up the collection, but a lot of the games were expensive at the time, and I didn't have much income, so I was really pleased to get this as a gift. It was kind of funny because I had seen it, and I had recommended my sister get it for someone else as a gift, and she said, "Oh yeah, pick it up," and then she actually gave it to me as a gift. But yeah, it's a bit of Sega, so I might have turned to the dark side, you know, with Nintendo. But I still like the Sega games, and from time to time we'll see them crop up on this series. And Crazy Taxi is just a fun arcade experience. Yeah, authoring music and all that sort of stuff. It's not your big adventure game or anything like that. But if you want something to play around for kind of 20 minutes, this is a good pick. Now, the next 3 games actually came together, because they were all pre-owned. I got them in the middle of 2003. That was all 2002, because as I said, I got the GameCube late in the year. 2003, I would get 3 games. I'm not entirely sure did I get them early in the year or in the middle of the year, but around that time. So, first of these games, this was kind of speaking to me more than, shall we say, Luigi's Mansion, and that was Mario Sunshine. Looking back, Luigi's Mansion is the more replayable game. It's short, sweet, kind of does something different. But as a kind of standalone buy the new system, it probably didn't, it didn't sell the system, I suppose. You want your Mario game, and Mario Sunshine was a good game, is a good game, but is it flawed. It is definitely more flawed than Mario 64. The blue coin challenges, some of the controls, a lot of the kind of repetition, defeating the piranha plant near the beginning of the game. Some of the stars are just annoying, or shines, like trying to get Yoshi into various places and he dies in water and whatnot. And the pachinko thing, oh my god. The leaf that you got to get down, one of the things too. For those that have played the game, they'll know what I mean. But that being said, it's still a very good platform game, and it's kind of like, yes, it's a weak Mario game, but a weak Mario game is still better than most games. So I did enjoy it, but it certainly was no Mario 64. The second game I played probably more than that, and that is the best-selling game on the system as far as I know, and it's Super Smash Bros. Melee. This really cranked up the N64. I had rented the N64 game. That's why I never owned it actually. And it's a great game. It's great fun and whatnot. And I remember having a good time with it. But it was Melee just took it to a whole another level. More fighters, more stages, more options, more game modes. Like the adventure mode was great. It was faster and more fluid. The graphics are just 10 times better. And it was an early title on the system, and a party game as well. There's a reason this game is still held up there as one of the best in the series, and people still go back to it because it is just so well kind of executed. And if you just want that kind of party brawler type of thing, you really can't go wrong with Melee. I played this quite a lot. I'm not an expert in these type of games, but I just enjoyed playing the adventure mode with different characters in the classic mode and having friends around. So yeah, top quality game. So my library at this point was small, but it was still good. Oh, I should have said, by the way, these games were €20 a piece at the time because I got 3 for 60, and the third game I got was a bit different. It was Rocky. So these are the ones where Nintendo and Sega. Actually, no, Factor 5. Come to think of it, Factor 5, which means I did not start my collection with a Nintendo or a Sega game. That's a bit different. So yeah, Rocky was the other one I got at the same kind of period where I got 2 or 3 for €20 each. I was a major fan of the Rocky movies. I just love the kind of underdog story. Especially the first one. The first one is just a classic film. I felt Rocky Balboa was actually a great film too. Some of the other ones, they have a bit of a camp value, but they're not in the same league, I would say. But totally, I love watching them and rewatching them. Had them on DVD. So I have a soft spot for Rocky. Even the Master System game, even though it's not very good in my opinion. So when I seen this, I was like, I gotta have it. I want to play it. It's a solid fighting game actually. It tries to be a real simulation, and you have your career mode and whatnot. It does come across as a tiny bit cheap in terms of presentation and whatnot. It could have done with a little bit more polish, but beyond that, if you want a Rocky game, it was actually not a bad Rocky game. Not a bad game. I mean, certainly better than the previous one. And that was kind of most of 2003. But I did get 2 games for Christmas, and they were 2, I would say, top quality games. First up was F-Zero GX, Sega Nintendo collab. So we're really seeing a changing of the guard. I had gone from Sega to Nintendo. Now Sega and Nintendo were working together, of course. The Dreamcast era was kind of coming to a close. Sega were going multi-platform. I loved F-Zero X on the N64. I liked F-Zero GX on the Gamecube. The graphics are insane. It's so fast and whatnot. So in that sense, it's a huge step up. The difficulty is also ramped up. F-Zero X is hard. This is rock hard. Where I struggled though was the visuals were a bit too noisy for me, and I struggled to get quite a mastery of the controls like I had for the N64 version. So the visual distraction, I don't know, it meant that I didn't really want to go back and master it. I played it, I enjoyed it, but I didn't master it. Now the game that I did spend a lot more time on was Star Wars Rebel Strike, so Rogue Squadron 3. Obviously, this was the follow-up to the game that made me want to get the GameCube. The graphics again are incredible. They have Rogue Leader included as a bonus feature with, a co-op bonus, so you can play through in 2-player. That is an insanely good feature. It's actually harder, I found, in this one when you're doing the 2-player. Yes, they introduced on-foot sections and kind of, I think there was some vehicle sections as well that aren't quite as polished. They look great, but they don't play quite as well as the kind of X-Wing basically stuff. But it still is a great fun game. And like the other game in the series, it looks tremendous. I would love to see a remaster of the trilogy, and maybe the Battle for Naboo, do a whole remaster. There have been talks of this, there was going to be Wii versions and whatnot, but they need to make this happen. I spent so long trying to get the kind of gold, or was there platinum medals? I can't remember that, but I spent so long playing it, and I would definitely recommend going for a blast and picking it up, even just to play the 2-player of Rogue Leader. So that was 2003. Moving onwards into 2004. My GameCube collection would get a little bit more varied, a little bit different. And first up was a game that some of the magazines, I can't remember, was it the kind of Nintendo Gamecube magazine, which was the successor to, or NGM, which was a successor to N64, or was it the official magazine? I think it was NGM. Were bigging up Splinter Cell and whatnot. So I said, or had done. So I said, okay, I'll give it a go because I enjoyed Metal Gear Solid. Maybe it would be like some, an equivalent style game. And I talked about the kind of, the light and darkness and hiding in the kind of shadows and kind of all that sort of stuff. And I said, that sounds interesting and it's okay. I sort of enjoyed it, but it didn't blow my mind. I don't think I ever finished it, which kind of says it all. Whereas I had finished basically every other game on the system. I tried to finish most of the games on the Master System and this Mega Drive and the N64. Where possible, some were just too hard. This one wasn't hard, the difficulty, it was just my interest waned. Next up though is a game that I absolutely completed and loved, and yet strangely I didn't go to buy it straight away, and that was The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. So for those that seen the previous series, episode, the N64 one, when I talked about Ocarina of Time, I mentioned my friends weren't keen on, didn't go out and buy Ocarina of Time straight away, even though they had bought A Link to the Past. They played my copy and were like, oh yeah, we got to get that. Roles got reversed here. I was in game in, I think it was just off Grafton Street at the time, and they had this pre-owned. I think it was 40, maybe 45, and I was like hemming and hawing. And it's the limited edition, and it's got the extra disc with the two versions of Ocarina of Time on it. It was him and hawing and kind of, I don't know about that, because maybe it's because of the cel shaded graphics. Maybe I had bought into that. I don't recall. But they said to me, look, if you loved Ocarina of Time, you loved Majora's Mask, get it, you love it. And they were right. I did. And of course, it came with Ocarina of Time and the Master Quest, which I replayed and I enjoyed just going through that experience again, and having the different dungeons and whatnot. Sure, not as good as the N64 version, but good, enjoyable. And Wind Waker, it really does hold up. Those cel shaded graphics, they're almost timeless. I mean, a lot of the GameCube games I think hold up graphically a lot better than, shall we say, the PlayStation 1 and N64 era. But the cel shaded stuff really, really does. Changing the wind and the slow sailing speed was definitely a problem, and I was grateful for them addressing that in the Wii U version, because that kind of just totally fixed my issues. But other than that, it was a great game and one of the best in the system. So it was a busy summer for me in terms of spending a lot of time on games, because next up was Spider-Man 2. I had enjoyed the film, and I had played this in HMV, a demo unit. There was a demo GameCube there. I played this and went, oh my god, the swinging mechanics are just amazing. They felt so real. So I was kind of into my superhero stuff at the time, so I said I'm going to pick this up, and did so, and I like 100% of the game, found all the collectibles, did all the missions, all that sort of stuff. But the main, and it's good. The story mode is good. It could do it a little bit more polish. The world, again, early kind of 3D open world style stuff, solid. But what made it was the swinging mechanics. And normally in the previous games, you swing and you just stick to the sky. Whereas these ones, it actually was sticking to the buildings, and you had to think about, well, what's going on? You had to mind your momentum and all that sort of stuff. And when you got the hang of it, it was awesome. So it was very much the physics of the swinging that sold me on it. On the kind of movie tie-in stuff, and between Star Wars, Rocky, Spider-Man, and now this one, Enter the Matrix, I'm clearly getting a lot of movie tie-in games. I hadn't really thought of that at the time. Again, loved the original Matrix. Couldn't wait for the sequel. Reloaded, had bought the Animatrix, watched that sort of stuff, was reading stuff online all the time about it. Had to get the game. Picked this up pre-owned too. Yeah. 2-disc game as well on the GameCube, so it's a big game. It's okay. I mean, you have a degree of essence of the Matrix, but obviously you don't play as Neo. You play as, was it Niobe and Ghost? I can't remember the character's name. Maybe I'm wrong on that. And you get some of the action, but it feels buggy. It feels unfinished in places. You spend so much time in a sewer. When you look at the kind of scenes on, say, Reloaded, and you think about like the Merovingian encounter, stuff like that, it's kind of like iconic and visually interesting, or even the chase on the highway. This was like sewer, uninteresting kind of cityscape. It just didn't have that visual appeal. It did have a hacking game which was okay, interesting at the time. It was okay. Like, that's all you could say about it. I played it, completed it, but it wasn't one that I would return to. Now, for Christmas then, something totally different. Something that I think everyone who owned a GameCube probably had, and that is Donkey Konga. I'm pretty sure it is illegal to own a GameCube without a pair of these. I have more than one of these. To be fair, it was actually really fun. You know, playing it in 2-player at Christmas was just great fun. The family all playing around, like, you know, like it's obviously basically just, you know, press to the beat, you know, boom, 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 boom. But despite the simplicity of it all, or maybe because of the simplicity, you know, left, right, same together, clap, that's all you do. Like, this, that simplicity made it. Yeah, you could have had better tracks or more tracks and whatnot, but it was just a fun game, and it was really part of that era. We were kicking off into the, you know, the music genre where you had Guitar Hero and Rock Band and all of these type of things. And Donkey Konga was, of course, one of the early ones. It was really good fun too, and kind of kept Nintendo in that kind of party game mode, where you had your Smash Brothers, your Mario Karts, your Donkey Konga. You know, you want to play something locally. N64 had the same thing. You pick up your bongos and you play. But a very different type of game for the Christmas. Anyway, on to 2005. So we're burning through the years now. Early one. This was a present, and it is Metroid Prime, the Player's Choice release. I've never actually completed this. I did play a decent amount of it, and I think I got lost or got stuck. Again, visually very impressive for the system for the time. Has so many nice little effects and details, and I think they did a tremendous job translating the 2D Metroid style gameplay into a 3D environment. So like, I can see why it's so well regarded. I don't know why I must have gotten stuck or lost or something, and that's why I stopped playing and probably moved on to something else. But I can totally see why it's, you know, considered one of the top games on the system, and something I do intend to get back to properly at some point. So I was obviously a big Zelda fan, and I had to get this. I think I got it the day it released, and that was Four Swords Adventures. I had corrected my mindset from that whole Wind Waker. Do I want to buy Wind Waker 2? Of course, it's Zelda. Jesus. And this is the version that came with the link cable and whatnot. So again, Nintendo really focusing on the local experience. You get your Game Boy, or Game Boy Advance SP, I should say, and you plug it in, you know, with your link cable. You get 4 people around. So very hard to set up. You need 4 Game Boys, 4 link cables to do it all properly. Each person plays a different link, and you have the dual screen kind of asynchronous kind of gameplay going on. But when it's working, when you're actually in that setup and you have everyone playing and working together, this is tremendous fun. It proves the concept can work, but the barrier to entry was also just so high, and they really, I mean, yeah, there was Crystal Chronicles, it's something similar, but to be honest, this was kind of it. They talked about the kind of GameCube, Game Boy Advance connectivity, and there was a few little unlockables that were nice. But this is the one that kind of says, we're going all in, and yeah, you don't need it. You can play with a GameCube controller and pop the screen up in one player, but it proves that was a great concept, albeit cumbersome. Good fun game, and really had vibes of combining Link to the Past and Wind Waker. So, a summer pickup then, and it is International Superstar Soccer 2. So, on the N64, I got an ISS 98. Loved it, played it so much. I kind of figured, okay, this was cheap. It was like 7 or 8 quid or something like that, second hand. So, I'll pick it up. This one I could never get into as much. I played it, it seemed decent, but whereas the games on N64 just really clicked with me, this one didn't, and I don't really know why. I don't know, did others feel the same way? Maybe it's that the teams had split and it was more focused on Pro Evo Soccer, and that series was kind of driving forward and ISS was kind of dropping off. I don't know, but yeah, it's okay, but it's not like you run home and kind of recommend it. Actually, I did get another game around the same time, and that was Agent Under Fire. And of course, this, going back to the kind of N64 connection with, oh, it's the next James Bond game, or it's a James Bond game I think this was 12. don't think I have anything to say. Yeah, EA had taken over by this point, and they were doing the Bond games. Clearly, they couldn't get Pierce Brosnan's likeness at this point. It did for Everything or Nothing at the end. This one it's a solid game, but just as The World Is Not Enough, and to a certain degree Perfect Dark had proven to me, Rare had kind of bottled lightning with GoldenEye, and it probably wasn't going to repeat. So this was an okay game, probably good game even, but not kind of like earth-shattering as we had seen in the past. And we're getting on to the Christmas stuff then. So 3 kind of Christmas games. First up, and these were all gifts, is Sonic Gems Collection. So I mentioned the Sega Nintendo crossover, and here we have it again. We have this one has Sonic CD, Sonic the Fighters, and Sonic Ore. Which, I mean, I didn't have Mega Collection, my friends did, so I borrowed that. But then again, I had most of the original games, so I didn't really need Mega Collection. I didn't have Sonic CD, I didn't have Sonic the Fighters. I did have Sonic Ore actually on the PC. That's quite a game. And I have 6 bonus Game Gear collections: Sonic 2, Sonic Spinball, Sonic Triple Trouble, Sonic Drift 2, Tails Sky Patrol, and Tails Adventure, and whatnot. So it was a good package. Maybe it wasn't quite as good value as the first package. This was my first proper chance to complete Sonic CD. I had played it on the PC and I got stuck at the the Metal Sonic race battle thing. I got past it this time, but overall, I don't think Sonic CD is one of the stronger titles. I felt the level layout was very confusing, you're bouncing all over the place at times and whatnot. Had some nice ideas, but yeah, the best part of it was definitely the intro and the music and stuff for me. Sonic the Fighters was, I had read about it in Sega Saturn magazine when I was thinking I was going to get a Saturn, thinking, oh yeah, Sonic the Fighters, oh yeah, it makes sense. It's okay, it's no Smash Bros. And Sonic Ore it's impressive on the Saturn as a technical achievement, but honestly, I think I might have ended up spending more time playing the Game Gear games on this. They should have included the Master System versions. What was that all about? Why include the Game Gear versions? I mean, the Game Gear version of Sonic 2 is just quantifiably worse than the Master System version. Like, the screen crunch is brutal. Anyway, the next game up was Ultimate Spider-Man. Obviously, I had loved Spider-Man 2, and this was the follow-up. I like the cel-shaded look to a degree. Funny enough, even though it sort of captures the comic book vibe and ages reasonably well, I think I prefer the look of Spider-Man 2. I enjoyed it, but it didn't click with me, even though it was the same thing. So I think I might have had my fill, but I didn't know it at the time, of Spider-Man games. I don't even know if I completed this one. Or certainly if I did, I completed the story and I didn't know 100% it, like I had the previous one. But yeah, I mean, it was a good attempt to do a follow-up and bring in a more comic visual. The final game, and maybe this is why I didn't spend as much time with Spider-Man, I spent so much time on this one. Lego Star Wars, the very original Lego kind of connectivity game, if you will. This blew my mind. I know it seems funny given that it's basically a kid's game, but one, it tied into Star Wars, and Star Wars had been the theme for the GameCube for me. And it had Lego, and it had, like, anyone could kind of pick up and play, and there was low penalty for dying and all that sort of stuff. It was just fun and simple, and there was great humor in it, and it just felt like a novel, fresh experience. So this totally kind of like seemed like it would be something I would like, but like, it's a good game. And I was like, oh my god, this is awesome type of game. So yeah, this kind of stole the Christmas that year. Anyway, that was 2005. Now we're up to 2006, so we're very much getting towards the end of the GameCube's life. I mean, at this point in time, it was very clear the GameCube was, you know, on a struggling, shall we say. Nintendo were really starting to think about the Wii and kicking things off that way. But we still had another year to go. And first up in 2006 then was Spider-Man. So I went back, as I said, I did like the Spider-Man games, and I seen this was a tenner, so I said I'll try it out. This has that flow though of the web mechanic just being, you shoot up into the air and just go, and it feels weird. It feels like you're driving a car, you know, through the sky. It's okay, but it's definitely the weakest of the games. Now, from an okay game to an absolutely stellar game. Again, NGM, were going nuts about this game, and rightly so. Whereas I didn't click with Splinter Cell. The Resident Evil 4, like, it's been reissued, re-released, it's now been remade. What is there left to say about this? It is just such a well executed game with so many great set pieces, and they do dial in that kind of, they use like audio to drive your, you know, fear or adrenaline, which you can hear the guys coming, you can't see them, all that sort of stuff, you know, the chainsaw going, and you mad, what are you buying? Which I don't know, I just love the little bit of comedy, almost B-movie stuff, even some of the dialogue and some of the way it was delivered, like by Leon, like having a senior moment and stuff. It broke the tension and kind of gave you that, you know, sense of relief. I could never actually complete it on the GameCube. I got up to about Salazar or past there onto the final island area, and I was really struggling. I did later get it on the Wii and completed it again, and completed it, I think, subsequently again since then in replay. But yeah, one of the games of the generation, absolutely. And very momentarily a GameCube exclusive. So next up we have, this was a gift, and this was Worms Blast. My parents had gotten me this because they'd seen us playing Worms on the N64 and thought, oh, it's Worms, we get that. This is not your typical Worms though, it's more of a puzzle game. It actually reminds me of Puzzle Bobble, kind of, you know, shooting stuff up. I never got into it, to be honest. I played it a little bit, but very, you know, it didn't click with me, whatever. I hope, maybe it's a gem in the collection that I don't know, but yeah, it didn't click with us. And that was coming up to Christmas 2006. So Wii was coming in, that's where the journey will go. But there was one kind of swan song left in the system, a very difficult to find game back then. I think only available in game. It might be like game exclusive over here. And that's Lego Star Wars 2. Take what I said about Lego Star Wars 1, double it. It was based on the better movies. It had more content. It had better vehicle action. It had more humor. It was just awesome. And you know, getting it on the GameCube just felt right for me for whatever reason. I mean, it wasn't either platform, but it felt right that it was on the GameCube. I think maybe because these games seem to work on Nintendo systems so well. And that's not to say they're kiddie consoles and all that sort of stuff, but they do. Yeah, anyway, look, it's a great game. I know you can get like modern compilations of the Skywalker trilogy. You know, why not? You have to pick it up. Certainly, probably a lot easier to get the modern ones than the GameCube one. That's it. That would be the transition then over to the next era, which I'll talk about Wii and what that meant after that. But there was one game that I think I got throughout 2002, 2006, but I have no idea when I got it, and that's Star Fox Adventures. I think I got it back then. I played a decent chunk of it, from what I recall. Great visuals. Rare's last game for Nintendo at the time, which was sad. Definitely a blow in the library, in my opinion. When you look back, you can see the absence of those Rare titles compared to the N64 era. Really, you know, obviously this was Dinosaur Planet and turned into a Star Fox game. Could have remained as Dinosaur Planet, to be honest. It wants to be their version of Zelda, but not quite as good. But I just don't remember when I got it. And that kind of speaks to some of those things, whereas I remember exactly where I got the other stuff. I don't on this, so it was somewhere in one of those years it fell. I don't know where it fell. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that look through the GameCube era, the early 2000s, and we'll see you again with next part soon enough. Actually, the next part might be a little different, because I might take a detour to deal with the stuff that wasn't on the main systems, because these evolving consoles, what about handheld? So might be a little detour next time around. Anyway, thanks for watching.